Hey friends, Aaron Mac BS Detector here. Okay, so I just found out that I have to work tonight, so I have got to get on here and keep this thing going, baby. We are gonna make it through this book. I think we're about halfway through, and if I had like a fancy camera or something, I would just sit here and read this to you guys all the way through. But I have got so many other videos and stuff on my phone that I just can't record like a 3 hour long video of me sitting here and reading it. So I'm doing it in pieces. I hope that's okay with everyone. I hope everyone is having an awesome day. Um, and I hope that you saw my short on the Cole Nieder. I don't know how you say it, but bro, that blew my hair back. Okay. It's basically, I'm going to say it one more time. It is literally a prayer that the Jews do on the Day of Atonement in the synagogues. They say it 3 times, and it basically cancels out any promise that they make throughout the year. So why are we listening to any Jew about anything? Now, I know this is going to be suppressed because of the words that I'm saying. The same thing is happening to Signal Before Silence. She is an Armenian girl, an Armenian Christian who is like exposing a lot of stuff that, and she's using AI to do it, which I think is like genius. But she's saying that even now that like Zionism has so infiltrated the AI systems, because all of these people that have made up all these tech bros are atheistic Zionists. And that's what you've got to realize, Christians. I'm begging y'all, please wake up, because that's what this book here, that's what this man, I'm sorry, I need to get my set up before I start going. Anyways, that's what this man who wrote this book was warning his Catholic friend about, okay? And we know that Jewish people do this. They will assume the role of whatever they need to infiltrate and to subvert whatever they are trying to attack, which in this case is Christianity. Okay. And I think maybe that his doctor friend that he was writing this letter to uh, had probably joined the Catholic Church just for that reason. However, I have no proof of that. That's just my assumption, because I don't trust any of these sneaky fuckers. And I think I'm going to next read. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep reading these books to you guys, and hopefully, people will tune in and listen. And if not, it will just be here on the internet for posterity's sake and for the sake of anyone that would like to go and reference things. But the next book that I'm going to do is called Zionism. I found it at a thrift store like 10 years ago, and it's literally been sitting in my garage. And I was out there going through some books and I found it, and I was like, oh, we're doing this one next, because it may even be thinner than this, which is like maybe like a centimeter, a quarter inch, something. It's not very thick. Anyways, so we are going to pick back up where I left off yesterday, where and this is fair use for the purposes of commentary and education, okay? That we were reading some of the pieces of the Talmud that Mr. Freedman was writing to Dr. Goldstein, okay? And he was letting him know what the Talmud actually says, as if Dr. Goldstein didn't know. Let's just be for real. I'm pretty sure he knew exactly what he was doing. But nevertheless, here we go. Okay. Now, they'll put book, okay? I don't know if you can see, but it says book. I know it's backwards because I have this turned around. But it says like book, and then it'll say whatever the part of the Talmud, and then what verses in the Talmud, okay? So it's Ketubot 11a, 11b, and in quotation it says, Rabbah said, it means this: when a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. For when the girl is less than this, it is as if one puts the finger in the eye. But when a small boy has intercourse with a grown-up woman, he makes her as a girl who is injured by a piece of wood. Like, what the fuck does that even mean, bro? Okay. And then the footnotes, they have annotations. So like, where it says Rabbah said it means, there's a 5 in parentheses, and basically it means or says this, okay? And then for when the girl is less than this, okay, less than this means less than 3 years old, you guys. And then there's one also after it says it is as if one puts a finger on the eye, and then there's a 7 in parentheses after eye, and it says tears come to the eyes again and again, so does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years. What, bro? What? Squeeze me? And the American church is just going right along with these people. Just, these are God's chosen people. We've got to follow them and look to them to tell us what the Bible means, which I'm realizing I'm going to and just keep reading because I got a lot of things to do today and we got to get through this. All right. Okay. So now the second, see where it says book and Kethuboth 11a, 11b. In quotation marks, Rab Judah said that Rab said, a small boy who has intercourse with a grown-up woman makes her, in parentheses, as though she were injured by a piece of wood. Like, what, dude? Okay, so although the intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act, nevertheless, the woman is injured by it as by a piece of wood. Like, whatever the hell that means. Okay, book. Hayorath 4a, in quotations, we learned, in parentheses, the law concerning the menstruant occurs in the Torah, but if a man has intercourse with a woman that awaits a day corresponding to a day, he is exempt. And that was all caps. But why? Surely, in parentheses, the law concerning, close parentheses, a woman that awaits a day corresponding to a day is mentioned in the scriptures. He hath made naked her fountain. But surely it is written, okay, that they might rule that in the natural way, even the first stage of contact is forbidden, and in an unnatural way, however, consummation of coition only is forbidden, but the first stage of contact is permitted. If so, in parentheses, the same might apply, even, in parentheses, to the case of a menstruant also, which I'm going over here and says, why then was the case of a woman who awaits a day corresponding to a day given as an illustration when the case of a menstruant already mentioned would apply the same illustration? The fact, however, is that in parentheses that the ruling might have been permitted, close parentheses, and then that gives us number 3 of the footnotes, which says the first stage of contact. Even in the natural way, another footnote, which takes me, says, in the case of one who awaits a day corresponding to a day, only consummation of coition being forbidden in her case. Alleging that the prohibition of the first stage has reference to a menstruant woman only, thus permitting a forbidden act which the Sadducees do not admit. And if you prefer, I might say, the ruling may have been that a woman is not regarded as Zaba, which is a woman who has an issue of blood not in the time of her menstruation and is subject to certain laws of uncleanness and purification, except during the daytime, because it is written all the days of her issue. Emphasis being laid on days. Okay, so now we're going to book Aboda Zara 36b 37a, and this is in quotation. R. Nahum B. Isaac said they decreed in connection with a heathen child that it would cause defilement by seminal emission. I think we all know what that means. There's a footnote, but I'm going to keep reading because we got to get through this. So that an Israelite child should not become accustomed to commit pederasty with it. From what age does a heathen child cause defilement by seminal emission? From the age of 9 years and 1 day, 37a. For inasmuch as he is then capable of the sexual act, he likewise defiles by emission. Rabina said, it is therefore to be concluded that a heathen girl communicates defilement from the age of 3 years and 1 day, for inasmuch as she is then capable of the sexual act, she likewise defiles by a flux. And then the footnote from 2 is seminal emission said, even though he suffered from no issue. So basically, it wasn't an accidental seminal emission. Okay, book Sota 26b. Our Papa said it excludes animal because there is not adultery in connection with an animal. And then the footnote says she would not be prohibited to her husband for such an act. What? This is so disgusting. Like, I can't even. Rabbah of Parazaka, and there's another footnote, Farasog near Baghdad. He is thus distinguished from an earlier rabbi of that name. Okay. Asked Ashi, whence is the statement which the rabbis made that there is no adultery in connection with an animal? Because it is written, thou shalt not bring the hire of a harlot or the wages of a dog, etc. And that's in Deuteronomy 28, verse 19. And it has been taught the hire of a dog, money given to a man, to a harlot to associate with his dog, which such an association is not legal adultery, but it's still disgusting and evil. Like, what about the dog's wishes? I mean, these people are sick, I'm telling you. Okay, and the wages of a harlot, the footnote says, if a man had a female slave who was a harlot and he exchanged her for an animal, it could be offered. Whoa, bro. Okay, are permissible, as it is said, even if both of these, and then there's a footnote, are an abomination to the Lord. Good. The two specific texts are abominations, but not for. The footnote says the other two mentioned by the rabbi as lying with mankind. The word for lying in the plural and is explained as denoting also unnatural intercourse. But, said Rabbah, it excludes the case where he warned her against contact of the bodies. And there's another footnote. With the other man, although there is no actual coition. Abaye said to him, that is merely an obscene act and not adultery. And did the All-Merciful prohibit a wife to her husband for an obscene act? Emphasis on the original text. Okay, book Yebamot 55b. In quotation, Rabbah said, for what purpose did the All-Merciful write carnally in connection with the designated bondmaid? And then it just references you to like a verse in Leviticus. A married woman, another verse, and a sota, which is Numbers, that in connection with the designated bondmaid is required, as has just been explained. And there's footnotes all throughout, but they don't say anything that makes any sense. They just refer you back to a Bible verse that I'm not going into right now because we are just reading this book. Okay, let's see. That in connection with a married woman excludes intercourse with a relaxed membrum, since no fertilization can possibly occur. Bro. They got all kind of loopholes, don't they? Okay. This is satisfactory interpretation in accordance with the view of him who maintains that if one cohabited with forbidden relatives with a relaxed membrum, he is exonerated. What, however, can be said according to him who maintains that for such an act one is guilty? The exclusion is rather that of intercourse with a dead woman, even though she dies as a married woman. Oh, how lovely. Since it might have been assumed that as a wife, even after her death, is described as his kin. And then there's a footnote here that says in Leviticus 21:2, where the text enumerates the dead relatives for whom a priest may defile himself, as was explained, Super 22b, his kin refers to one's wife. Since it might have been assumed that as a wife, even after death, is described as his kin, one should be guilty for intercourse with her, as for that with a married woman. Hence, we are taught that one is exonerated. Oh, okay. Book Yebamoth 103a and 103b. When the serpent copulated with Eve, B infused her. Okay. So this is the serpent seed BS. It looks like these Talmudists are believing, which I see a lot of Torah observant Christians in my comments on Facebook talking about how it was okay for Yahweh to go and just indiscriminately kill all these people or unalive all these people. I'm sorry, man, women, children, because they were serpent seed. Like, do you see the slippery slope that you get into when you start going into Torah observance? And people like Kay Podgy and Aaron Abke are just leading you right on into it. Stop it. As Michael Jordan would say, stop it. Get some help. Anyways, okay. Quote, when the serpent copulated with Eve in the Garden of Eden, according to tradition, he infused her, the human species, with lust. The lust of the Israelites who stood at Mount Sinai and experienced the purifying influence of divine revelation came to an end. The lust of idolaters who did not stand at Mount Sinai did not come to an end. Oh, so I guess that's why, all these tunnels and stuff in Brooklyn, these rabbi holes, okay? They've got to be kidding. Yebamoth 63a. R. Eleazar further stated, what is meant by the scriptural text, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh? Genesis 11:23, emphasis on this is now. The emphasis appears in original Sonsino edition. And we're talking about the Talmud here, okay? People, just in case you didn't know. That's what we started reading. And these are examples that Mr. Freedman is writing to Dr. Goldstein, who is supposed to be a converted Catholic, okay? And he is writing all of this stuff, this gaggy, disgusting stuff out of their holy book to be like, bro, do you know about this? Have you heard about this? Do you plan on telling your congregants about this? And no, he probably did not, because he had probably made his Kol Neder prayer and, is out deceiving and being deceived. Nevertheless, we shall continue. Book Yebamoth 60b. As R. Joshua B. Levi related, there was a certain town in the land of Israel, the legitimacy of whose inhabitants was disputed. And Rabbi sent R. Ramanos, who conducted an inquiry and found in it the daughter of a proselyte who was under the age of 3 years and 1 day. Okay, a proselyte, Linder, the age of 3 years and 1 day, may be married by a priest. And then it says, after, there's a footnote that says that this proselyte was under the age of 3 years and a day and was married to a priest. Do you see are you starting to see their religion? Are you starting to see what their mandates are? It's to be PDF files and to marry children. All right. And Rabbi declared her eligible to live with a priest, i.e. permitted to continue to live with her husband at, 2 years old, basically. Okay, book Yebamoth 59b. R. Shimi B. Haya stated, a woman who had intercourse with a beast is eligible to marry a priest. And there's a footnote number 4. Even a high priest, it says, the result of such intercourse being regarded as a mere wound, and the opinion that does not regard an accidentally injured hymen as a disqualification does not so regard such an intercourse either. Likewise, it was taught a woman who had intercourse with that which is no human being, and there's a footnote that says a beast, though she is in consequence subject to the penalty of stoning. Another footnote 6, if the offense was committed in the presence of witnesses after due warning. So, if she just went behind a bush and laid with a donkey or something and nobody saw it, it's cool. As long as nobody caught her, it's cool. What the? What? I mean, my flabbers are gasted, okay? Like, I knew that there was some real sick shit in the Talmud, but I didn't know it was this freaking deep. I mean, they go into every disgusting detail. Okay. So, though she is in consequence subject to the penalty of stoning if she got caught, basically, is what they're saying, is nevertheless permitted to marry a priest in the absence of witnesses and warning. Well, how generous of them. Book Yevamot 12b. Quotation marks. R. Bibai recited for R. Nahum 3 in quotation, parentheses, categories of women may, there's a footnote, but it doesn't mean anything, use an absorbent hackled wool or flax in their marital intercourse to prevent conception. A minor, a pregnant woman, and a nursing woman. The minor may use an absorbent because otherwise she might, perhaps, as the footnote says, become pregnant, and as a result might die. And what is the age of such a minor? Who is capable of conception but exposed thereby to the danger of death. From the age of 11 years and 1 day until the age of 12 years and 1 day. One who is under when no conception is possible, or over this age when pregnancy involves no fatal consequences, must carry on her marital intercourse in the usual manner. Just wow. Yevamoth 59b. When Demi came from Palestine to Babylon, he related, it once happened at Hai Talu, which is Babylonian form for Itulu, modern Itarun, NW of Kadesh versus S. Klein of Beatrosh. I don't even know what that means. Okay, at Hai Talu, that while a young woman was sweeping the floor of her house, a village dog or a big hunting dog, ferocious dog, small wild dog, these are all footnotes, okay, covered her from the rear. A case of unnatural intercourse. This is fucking sick, bro. And Rabbi permitted her to marry a priest. Samuel said, even a high priest. How charitable. I mean, who, like, that is literally like the plot to every bad adult movie like I've ever seen, you know? She's like sweeping the floor and she bends down, like, gross. Like, what kind of these people have some sick imaginations. I'm like, feel like I need to wash my mouth out with some coffee. But we're going to carry on because these people must be exposed. This is some sick shit, bro. Okay. Ketubot 6b. She said to him, not like those Babylonians who are not skilled in moving aside, which there's a footnote that says having intercourse with a virgin without causing bleeding. But there are some who are skilled in moving aside. Thus, no blood need come out, and let his head be cut off, and let him not die. Does not apply. Okay. If so, why give the reason of... Okay. If so, why anxious? He need not be anxious about the intercourse and should not be free from reading Shema on account of such anxiety. I guess because he's not skilled in moving sideways, it says in the footnotes. Okay. For one who is not skilled, let them say one who is skilled is allowed to perform the first intercourse on Shabbat. One who is not skilled is forbidden. Most people are skilled. Okay, and then it says, therefore the principle regarding let his head be cut off and let him not die does not, as a rule, apply. Dear Lord. Said Rabbah, the son of Ar-Hanan, to Abayi, If this were so, then why have the groomsmen testify in case of need to the virginity of the bride? If the bridegroom will act in a manner that will cause no bleeding, the groomsmen will not be able to testify on the question of virginity. Why have a sheet to provide evidence of the virginity of the bride? And this is like one of those archaic things. They do this in Islam. It's like they have to make sure that this bride is a virgin. She's got to bleed. Okay, so Abai said to him, there, the groomsman and the sheet are necessary. Perhaps he will see and destroy the tokens of her virginity. And then there's another footnote. It may happen that he will act in the normal manner and cause bleeding, but he will destroy the tokens and maintain that the bride was not a virgin. For this reason, the above-mentioned provisions are necessary. Where, however, he moved aside and made a false charge as to her virginity, the bride can plead that she is still a virgin. Interesting. After reading these verbatim quotations from the countless other similar quotations, which you will find in the official unabridged Sonsino edition of the Talmud in English language, are you of the opinion, my dear Dr. Goldstein, that the Talmud was the sort of book from which Jesus drew his teachings, which enabled him to revolutionize the world on moral and religious subjects? You have read here verbatim quotations and official footnotes on a few of the many other subjects covered by the 63 books of the Talmud. When you read them, you must be prepared for a shock. I am surprised that United States Post Office does not bar the Talmud from the mails. I hesitate to quote them in this letter. In support of the contention by the top echelon among the outstanding authorities on this phase of the present status of the Talmud, further proof of the wide influence exerted by the Talmud upon the so-called or self-styled Jews is supplied by Rabbi Morris N. Kurtzer's article, What is a Jew?, in the June 17, 1952 issue of Look magazine. Rabbi Morris N. Kurtzer's article contains a lovely picture of a smiling man seated in a chair with a large opened book upon his lap. Seated around him on the floor are about a dozen smiling men and women. They are paying close attention to the smiling man in the chair with the open book upon his lap. He is reading to the persons on the floor. He emphasizes that he is reading by gestures with one of his hands. Beneath this photograph of the group is the following explanation. Adults study ancient writings too. Rabbi in this picture, seated in chair, leads group discussion of Talmud before evening prayer. End quote. This picture and explanation indicate the extent the Talmud is the daily diet of so-called or self-styled Jews. In this day and age, and the Talmud is first taught to children of so-called or self-styled Jews as soon as they are able to read. Just as the Talmud is the textbook by which rabbis are trained, so is the Talmud also the textbook by which the rank and file of the so-called or self-styled Jews are trained to think from their earliest age. In the translation of the Talmud, with its text edited, corrected, and formulated by the eminent Michael Rodkinson, with its first edition revised and corrected by the celebrated Reverend Dr. Isaac M. Wise, on page 11, it states, quote, the modern Jew is a product of the Talmud, end quote. All you Torah observant people, take notes, because y'all are looking to literal PDF files to tell you what the Old Testament means. Stop it. To the average Christian, the word Talmud is just another word associated by them with the form of religious worship practiced in their synagogues by so-called or self-styled Jews. Many Christians have never heard of the Talmud. Very few Christians are informed on the contents of the Talmud. Very few Christians are informed on the content. Oh, I just read the same sentence. Okay. Some may believe the Talmud to be an integral part of the religious worship known to them as Judaism. It suggests a sort of Bible or religious textbook. It is classed as a spiritual manual, but otherwise few, if any, Christians have an understanding of the contents of the Talmud and what it means in the daily lives of the so-called or self-styled Jews. As an illustration, my dear Dr. Goldstein, how many Christians have any concept of the Kol Neder, all vows prayer recited in synagogues on the Day of Atonement? And this is what, I gotta hammer home to you guys. And I'm also wondering, did Dr. Goldstein actually say this Kol Neder prayer? Which basically means that any vow or oath that they take throughout the year, they don't have to honor. Okay? This is why you do not trust any tiny hat. Not one. Okay? They are all lying liars. And they're all working an agenda. Okay. In volume 8 of the Jewish Encyclopedia on 539, found in the Library of Congress, the New York Public Library and libraries of all leading cities will be found the official translation into English of the prayer known as the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer. It is the prologue of the Day of Atonement services in the synagogues. It is recited 3 times by the standing congregation in concert with chanting rabbis at the altar. After the recital of the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer, the Day of Atonement religious ceremonies follow immediately. The Day of Atonement religious observances are the highest holy days of the so-called or self-styled Jews, and they are celebrated as such throughout the world. The official translation into English of the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer follows. Quote, all vows, obligations, oaths, anathemas, whether called konam, konas, or by any other name, which we may vow or swear or pledge or whereby we may be bound from this day of atonement unto the next, in parentheses, whose happy coming we await, we do repent. May they be deemed absolved, forgiven, annulled, and void, and made of no effect. They shall not bind us, nor have power over us. The vows shall not be reckoned vows. The obligations shall not be obligatory, nor the oaths be oaths. End quote. Do you see? Do you see what has happened here? The implications, inferences, and innuendos of the Kol Neder prayer are referred to in the Talmud in the book of Nedarim 23a and 23b as follows. Quote, and he who desires that none of his vows be made during the year shall be valid, let him stand at the beginning of the year and declare, another quotation inside the quotation, every vow which I make in the future shall be null. And there's a footnote, and it says, this may have provided a support for the custom of reciting the Kol Neder, a formula for dispensation of vows prior to the evening service of the Day of Atonement. Through the beginning of the year, the new year is mentioned here. The Day of Atonement was probably chosen on account of its great solemnity, but Kol Neder as part of the ritual is later than the Talmud, and as seen from the following statement of Arhuna B. Henane, the law of revocation in advance was not made public. Well, I'm finna make it public, okay? Anyways, okay. Every vow which I make in the future shall be null, and this is in parentheses. His vows are then invalid, providing that he remembers this at the time of the vow. So, like, all you got to do is cross your fingers, hold it behind your back. This is absolutely nuts. Okay. The greatest study of the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer, was made by the eminent psychoanalyst Professor Theodor Reich, the celebrated pupil of the famous Dr. Sigmund Freud. The analysis of the historic, religious, and psychological background of the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer by Professor Reich presents the Talmud in its true perspective. This important study is contained in Professor Reich's The Ritual Psychoanalytical Studies in the chapter on the Talmud. On page 168, Professor Reich states, quote, the text was to the effect that all oaths which believers take between one Day of Atonement and the next Day of Atonement are declared invalid. So they're giving a pass to, like, promise you whatever and then lie to your face. Why is America in bed with these people? Okay, moving on. Before explaining to you how the present wording of the Kol Neder prayer was introduced into the Day of Atonement synagogue ceremonies, my dear Dr. Goldstein, I would like to quote a passage to you from the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. The Universal Jewish Encyclopedia confirms the fact that the Kol Neder, All Vows Prayer, has no spiritual value, as might be believed, because it is recited in a synagogue on the Day of Atonement, as the prologue of the religious ceremonies which follow it. The secular significance of the Kol Neder All Vows Prayer is indicated forcefully by the analysis in the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia in Volume 6 on page 441. It states, and I quote, "The Kol Neder has nothing whatever to do with the actual idea of the Day of Atonement. It attained to extraordinary solemnity and popularity by reason of the fact that it was the first prayer recited on this holiest of days," end quote. My dear Dr. Goldstein, prepare for the shock of your life. Compelled by what you may now read here about the Kol Neder All Vows Prayer, you must be shocked to learn that many Christian churches actually pealed their bells on the Day of Atonement in celebration of that holy day for the so-called or self-styled Jews. How stupid can the Christian clergy get? Apparently pretty stupid, because now they're sucking the Israelis' asses and going over there to do Holy Land visits and shit. And is it even the Holy Land? I don't know. I question everything that I'm told, because just like the channel name says, I have detected a lot of bullshit in my life, and that is my job here, is to detect it and show it to you. So I hope you'll sub and follow. Like, I literally, I love everybody, okay? I want us all to win. I want everybody to wake up and realize that we have been asleep, okay? Christians, non-Christians, Muslims, Jews, whoever, atheists, whoever. Like, I love all of you guys, and I just want us to all see the game that we're being played by, okay? Anyways, okay. How stupid can the Christian clergy get? From what I have learned after a cursory inquiry, I am unable to say whether it was a case of stupidity or cupidity. With what you already know, together with what you will additionally know before you finish this letter, you will be able to judge for yourself whether it was stupidity or cupidity. There is not one single fact in this letter which every graduate of theological seminary did not have the opportunity to learn. The opportunity to learn. It doesn't mean that they did learn it. The following news item was featured in the New York World Telegram on October 7th, only a few days ago. How interesting. Under a prominent headline, Jewish holidays to end at sundown. And that's in quotation marks. The New York World Telegram have great prominence to the following story. Synagogues, okay, this is a quote. Synagogues and temples throughout the city were crowded yesterday as the 24-hour fast began. Dr. Normal Salat, head of the Synagogue Council of America, representing the three major Jewish bodies, has called on other faiths to join the fast. Cutting across religious lines, many Protestant churches in the city pealed their bells last night to sound the Kol Neder tradition melody used at the start of the Yom Kippur. The gesture of goodwill was recommended by the Manhattan office of the Protestant Council, end quote. That just about tops anything I've ever heard had come to my attention, revealing the ignorance and indifference of the Christian clergy to the hazards today facing the Christian faith. Because what fellowship hath light with darkness, friends? From my personal contacts with the Manhattan office of the Protestant Council in the recent past, I hold out very little hope for any constructive contribution they can make to the common defense of the Christian faith against its dedicated enemies. In each instance, they buckled under the pressure exerted upon them by the context for the so-called or self-styled Jews. If it was not so tragic, it would be comic. It was a joke indeed, but the joke was on the Christian clergy. Ye gods! Many Christian churches pealed their bells as the Protestant Council reports the event to sound the Kol Neder traditional melody used at the start of Yom Kippur. Just where does betrayal of a trust and breach of faith begin? The present wording of the Kol Neder All Vows, which that's in parentheses, I guess that's what it means, is the All Vows prayer, or Kol Neder. It's Kolnidre. That story involves the history of the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe. Before relating here as briefly as possible the history of the so-called or self-styled Jews of Eastern Europe, I would like to quote here another short passage from the Jewish Encyclopedia. In analyzing the course of history which resulted in the present wording of the Kol Neder All Vows prayer, the Jewish Encyclopedia in volume 7 on page 540 states, and I quote, An important alteration in the wording of the Kol Niter was made by Rashi's son-in-law, Meir ben Samuel, who changed the original phrase from the last day of atonement to this one, to from this day of atonement until the next. End quote. You will agree, my dear Dr. Goldstein, that Meir ben Samuel knew what he was doing. The wording of that altered version of the Kol Niter all vows prayer makes the recital of the prayer a release during the coming year from any obligation to respect any oath, vow, or pledge made during the coming year. Like any one-year license obtained from the federal, state, or municipal governments, the altered version of the Kol Niter prayer is also a license for 1 year only. Kol Niter all vows prayer extends immunity in advance for 1 year for all obligations to observe the terms of oaths, vows, and pledges made in the year following the date of the Day of Atonement, when the prayer was recited. Each year, however, it becomes necessary to renew this license, which automatically revokes any oath, vow, or pledge made during the next 12 months by again appearing in a synagogue on the next Day of Atonement and reciting the prayer again. Do you approve of this? Dr. Goldstein. I'm sure he does. The passage in the Talmud referring to Kol Niter all vows prayer certifies to several serious situations. It certifies that Kol Niter all vows prayer was added as a prologue to the Day of Atonement religious services long after the completion of the Talmud between 500 AD and 1000 AD. By the statement, as part of the ritual is later than the Talmud. It confirms that Meir ben Samuel, who authored the present altered version of the Kol Niter all vows prayer, lived in the 11th century. Furthermore, the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe believed it served their purpose better to keep secret from their Christian conquerors their attitude on oaths, vows, and pledges. The law of revocation in advance was not made public. And that is in quotes. Without a complete and accurate knowledge of the origin and history of the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe, my dear Dr. Goldstein, it is quite impossible for yourself or anybody to intelligently understand the harmful influence the Talmud has exerted for 10 centuries and the Kol Niter all vows prayer for 7 centuries upon the course of world history. These two little-known factors are the hub and the spokes of the big wheel rolling merrily along the road to complete world domination and the not distant future without arousing suspicion and wearing the innocent disguise of an alleged religious belief as their only defense mechanism. This insidious intrigue creates the most effective camouflage for the conspirators. The virility of their plot presents a problem in the defense of the political, economic, social, and cultural ideologies developed under a Christian civilization. You will probably also be astonished as the 150 million Christians years ago when I electrified the nation with the first publication by me about the facts disclosed by my many years of research into the origin and the history of the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe. My many years of intensive research established beyond the question of any doubt, contrary to the generally accepted belief held by Christians, that the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe at any time in their history in Eastern Europe were never the legendary lost 10 tribes of Bible lore. That historic fact is incontrovertible. And I think I'm going to stop right there because I just want to yap for a second. I didn't realize when I made my little short yesterday about this Kol Niter, Nidre, whatever prayer, that I didn't realize that he was going to actually go into it. But, you know, when I was reading that in the prologue of the book, my eyes almost popped out of my head because, I mean, you know, you have to have some sense of reading comprehension to realize what was being said there. That they basically, on the Day of Atonement, okay, say the prayer 3 times, okay, that any oath that they make, they don't have to honor. I mean, it's like crossing your fingers and being like, I promise, cross my fingers, you know? It's wild. And Christians, y'all have got to wake up, bro. You got to. I love y'all. You're my brothers and sisters. But we cannot keep looking to these people who say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Okay? And I'm going to wrap it up there. Everybody have a great day.